weapons with them and are authorized to do so. But unannounced home visits started last year and are still going on. The state is doing targeted mailings, or supposed to be doing targeted mailings to inform consumers and providers about these anti-fraud measures and convey program integrity goals. And then finally, the counties are supposed to have additional social worker training and a standardized curriculum so that there'll be additional training for county staff to investigate, detect, and then either the county or the state prosecute suspected fraud. The governor, in his budget, puts forward about $100 million to pay for all of the activities of county district attorneys, county welfare staff, state staff at the Department of Health Services, and state staff at the Department of Social Services, Healthcare Services and Social Services, those two departments. And then the governor's budget assumes that by spending this $100 million, that the state will save a net of about $535 million. So I think that covers the main elements of the governor's anti-fraud initiative and the funding for those activities.
Thank you, Karen. And we will.
So I think that kicks it over to Deborah.
Yes. Can you hear me in here?
Yes, we can.
Okay. And thank you, Karen. I want to back up a minute because I'd like to say a couple of things about why it's important for us to be having this discussion. Much as we'd like to, we can't just say, oh, this fraud is BS and we don't have to, deal with it at all. The message that has been given by this governor, and if he's anything, he is a master of message, is that this program not only is full of fraud, but that's a reason to attack it and cut it. These things, it makes it more palatable, I believe, for legislators and public to support cuts to this program if they believe that it's full of fraud. For years, we in the coalition have tried to figure out how we deal with this issue, and we're at a point now where I think we all have to deal with this issue. I would not recommend to you that you say there is no fraud in the IHSS program. I don't think that that's true, and I don't think it's helpful to us. And why should there be no fraud in this program? It's a human program. There's fraud in every government program, in private industry, everywhere. This is the only program, however, in which the governor is intending to eliminate it and justify it partly on the basis of fraud. There has been fraud in the legislature, but I don't hear anybody suggesting that we eliminate the legislature. Oh, so some of you like that idea? Oh, okay. I'll be... you like that, Herb, huh? There is some fraud, but the point is, as Karen's made, there has never been any objective evidence to support these numbers that have been thrown around. And in fact, yesterday in the Sacramento Bee, there was a little article from quoting some figures from Sacramento District Attorney, who I think has rabies or something about fraud. I mean, she's just, I don't know what her issue is, but anyway, and after all this money that they've spent, they've come up with 19 cases. Out of how many? 18,000 people maybe on the caseload there? I don't know what the number is. So to redirect the discussion to actual numbers and balance that more heavily with the benefits of the program. And I will say one other thing about this, which is one of the definitions of Medicaid fraud, and this is, IHSS is a Medicaid program. One of the definitions of fraud is the provision of substandard care. And if there's anybody here who thinks that there isn't, by that definition, fraud going on in almost every nursing home in this state every single day, I'd like to meet you, because if that's the definition we should be using, we should be looking at other providers as well. One of my little prejudices.
Thank you.
Yeah, right, and that's exactly right. And you don't hear of the kind of harm and abuse and neglect and death in IHSS that you hear from and proven, not just rumors or accusations, but proven in institutional settings every single day. Oh, thank you for letting me climb up on my little soapbox here. And every state, and it's been that way since I was first involved as a social worker, which was 30 years ago. Our position at Disability Rights California is that in, say, that question of unannounced home visits, that folks should cooperate, which only means that you should be, if somebody comes to your door, you should demand identification, appropriate identification. You should tell them what your circumstances are at that moment, and if you choose not to let them in, or they say they want to come back, we would suggest that you keep a record of that interaction, that you invited them in and they declined because you were in the middle of the bowel program or your bath or whatever it is. Or if you want to let somebody in at that point, feel free to do it. But that you do not need to be subject to discriminatory application of these rules. And I think it's on your CD. There's a little PowerPoint handout that shows about what you can do if you think these program changes have been applied in a discriminatory way. There's a address and phone number for the Civil Rights Bureau of the California Department of Social Services. But I would, and I know you will at every opportunity, talk about, acknowledge, okay, there's some fraud, we get it, it's a tiny amount, under 1% by every proven survey or study, and let's move on to, the benefits of the program. And one of our next speaker is Kathy Senderling from the County Welfare Directors Association, and she's going to talk from the county perspective about these anti-fraud, and I always put them in quotation marks, measures. Kathy.
Okay, great. Hi, folks. Very glad to be here this morning. Sorry that I couldn't join you in person. We had hoped that our policy analyst, Diana Boyer, who does in-home supportive services policy work and is just fabulous, could join you. And she had a couple of issues come up that precluded her from participating. So I was glad to step in, and I'm sorry that I can't meet y'all in person, but it's good to hear you and hear your questions on the phone. So I think you probably are familiar with the County Welfare Directors Association, but just to make sure, we're a statewide nonprofit, and we represent the 58 county human services departments. So want to make real clear, I don't represent the DAs, I represent the human services departments, and it is an important distinction, of course, for various reasons. I have just a few points that I wanted to make from the CWDA perspective, and I do think that Karen's point